31 women a day die in this country from breast cancer every day. I mean, that's actually a shocking figure still, isn't it, in 2022?
People are much less scared of breast cancer now. I mean, the drop in mortality rates is very significant, obviously. The messaging that's been out for the last 30 years, remembering that before campaigns like this started, before the pink ribbon had been invented, before there was a Breast Cancer Awareness Month, nobody knew anything about breast cancer. We certainly wouldn't have been sitting here talking about breast cancer for national television. Magazines didn't talk about it, families didn't talk about it, and I know from first-hand experience of my grandmother, who was diagnosed before this campaign started, that she didn't talk about it either. And we didn't know anything about her disease, we didn't know anything about her treatment, and in fact we now know that the doctors and research scientists also knew a lot less. If you are diagnosed early, there is still a 90% chance that you will recover from your diagnosis after treatment. I think there is room for hope.
Young women can get breast cancer and young women can die of breast cancer because 8 out of 10 women don't regularly check their breasts, and some women admit that they never do. What would you say to those women?
Unfortunately, that is a misconception, and I have met countless young women in their 20s or earlier who have been diagnosed with breast cancer, and most of them have found their lumps themselves. And many of them found them inadvertently, soaping in the shower, trying to do up a bra that was sticking on something. It can happen, and that is why young women do need to self-check.
We do know that some groups are much worse at looking out for breast cancer, and if they find something, going to the doctor, particularly black women, particularly South Asian women. There's a stigma maybe in those communities. How on earth do you get around that?
Hearing their stories reminded me very much of how it was when my grandmother was diagnosed in the early 90s, where she didn't want to tell anyone. She thought she'd be judged. She didn't want pity when people knew nothing. They wanted it to be brushed aside. And that's very much what 2 of our ambassadors have said to us from the South Asian community and from the black community. And our young ambassador is also very interesting on the subject. She actually said that the peers and the groups that she's talking to, they're actually fine talking about breast cancer. They feel they had been told in school or by friends or by family members or in magazines or shows like this to self-check. But most of them still thought it wouldn't happen to them because they were young or because they were kind of flat-chested or various other things.
What would you say to those women who are thinking, if I go to that screening, I'll have to spend X number of pounds on my bus fare, and if I don't go, I'll save that money and I can spend it on something else? I mean, it's a big problem, you know, in this day and age, particularly at the moment. It's a big problem. How do you get around that and make people go to their screenings?
Well, you can't make people do anything, can you?
No.
I suppose it's just through education. But interestingly enough, there's an extra $15 million being given to the Breast Cancer Research Foundation over the next couple of years to expressly deal with the disparities. A black woman is 40% more likely to die of breast cancer than a white woman. And there's different reasons for that.
You design bikinis, you model bikinis, you have great body confidence, clearly. Do you think body confidence is an issue with people not checking, people not going to their screenings? It's just not something they would do, stand naked or stand topless in front of a mirror or stand topless in front of a strange nurse.
I think in some cultures, yes, it is. I think it is, to be topless in front of a nurse. Sometimes as women, we put ourselves right at the bottom of the list of things to do. You know, we're caretakers. We take care of everybody else. The house, the kids, everything. School bags, school runs, we're doing everything, and very often we do come last. But unfortunately, I think that's something that we do need to try to talk about because, you know, caretakers can't really take care of people if they're not there.
Do you think we'll ever be in a world where we won't need Pink October because there'll be a cure and people won't die from breast cancer?
I do believe there will be a world where women do not, where anyone, man or woman, does not die of breast cancer. I truly believe that, and I've spoken to some of the best research scientists in the world, and they said yes, there will be a time, and all we need is more money and more research.
Is it far away, do you think?
Well, that I can't really say. But what I can say is that every year we're told something very encouraging, which has been discovered in research. I mean, treatments are so much better now than they were 30 years ago. I mean, so much better. And the diagnosis, they come up with unbelievable information all the time. So, yes, I don't know a timeline, but I hope it's in my lifetime.